Will the
Live,
trains be
special.
cheaper? And will they run on time?
Great Britain Railways.
So the primary aim of this is to improve reliability,
Transport
and clamp down
Minister,
on the delays, the cancellation,
MP,
the waste
subject
and the
talk,
inefficiency
UK 24.
that we've seen over the last 30 years. We've had private train operating companies running train services in this country
Since the
over
90s,
last few
since
decades.
1990.
And it's clearly
90s,
hasn't
it's the
worked.
90s.
The system is broken and we desperately need to fix it.
Basically, hopefully,
And
we'll be paying less for train fares in the future in the UK. That's the idea. So we
Establishing
last
a sort of
end
more integrated
That's what
and
Labour's
unified
talking about.
railway where we can get to grips with the day-to-day planning and make sure that we're making decisions that make sense both for the train service and for the track and the infrastructure. We need to bring these train operating companies into public ownership. And so we're going to turn the page really on the last 30 years of failure.
You say a first step on a journey. It sounds to me like nothing will change quickly. What can passengers expect to see? What differences will they expect to see in the near future?
Aye.
So if you look at the track record of the direct operator, DfT operator, when we've brought train operating companies into public ownership in the past, we have seen some improvement. So if you look at LNER, for example, we have reduced the number of trains that are cancelled because of staff shortages to basically zero, and we've reduced other cancellations to about 5%. Southeastern, which is also now in public ownership, is in the top 5 of train operators for punctuality. And so, we can make improvements. It's about getting the right leadership in place. It's about having the right culture as well, and for a laser-like focus on the passenger, because train operating companies are often thinking about their shareholders, the owning group. And so what this change does means that the management fee that we pay to the train operating companies, we don't have to pay that anymore. So all the money that's available to be spent on the railway can go into investing in passenger services as opposed to servicing shareholders. And I think that's a really important change. We can't go on the way that we have been over the last few decades because it's not working for anyone. We had strike, we had disruption after disruption, and I think we need a fundamental reset and to build a railway network that is fit for the 21st century.
We know, don't we, that between January and March this year, South Western, their trains, 68%, only 68% of their trains ran on time. Now, if you can't trust a train to be on time, you can't guarantee you will get to your job on time, to pick your child up on time. And when can people using the trains expect that number to change?
Yeah, so look, I really want to see
There's dirty diesel there.
When South
This is
Western
Dave's train.
comes in, an improvement in reliability. And I should also just make the point, Sally, that in advance of that, we have got a very rigorous
Class 4
management regime for the train operating companies that aren't yet in public ownership. And it's important for your viewers to remember that this will be happening over the course of the next 3 years, because we've got 10 train operating companies that we need to bring in-house. So we're starting with South Western, C2C and Greater Anglia. I recognise that the travelling public are impatient for change. I'm impatient for change. That's why we're making this announcement.
Train fares going up every year, please.
It was one of the first major pieces of legislation that this government put through to deliver on our manifesto commitment, so we can get that leadership in place, we can get the culture right in the organisation, so that we can have a reset of the relationship with the trade unions as well, because the previous Conservative government pursued a scorched earth approach to industrial relations. I think that we need to respect the trade unions, treat them as partners to work with as opposed to a problem to be managed. Sometimes the trade unions will be right, sometimes they will be wrong. We need to be able to have robust, mature discussions.
Aye.
But actually,
that sounds better.
Resetting that relationship, getting the right leadership in place, changing the culture, and making sure that we also make best use of new technology so that we can become more efficient, and we run a railway that provides value for money, both for the fare payer, but also for the taxpayer.
I like her
How do you
talking.
reset that relationship though with the trade unions when you've already agreed to pay rises?
Yeah, so we did agree to a pay rise in order to break the deadlock, and I remember a tweet from the previous Conservative Minister, Hugh Merriman, who congratulated the new government on resolving the strikes and he actually said shortly after the election, "I'm sorry I didn't do it myself." And so we couldn't go on because people were starting to think that the trains just weren't going to be there for them. So they were making alternative arrangements, finding other ways to travel.
Yes, we
And
were,
that was
indeed.
so damaging for the long-term future of the railways, because if people don't
Get the coach,
trust the system and have faith
get the taxi,
that they can
Uber
get to
taxi.
where they want to, when they want to get there, then people will turn their backs on it. There was a huge cost to the economy. If you think about all those leisure trips that people couldn't make when those strikes were
to
happening.
London City.
It was absolutely imperative
It was horrible.
that we found a way to break the deadlock.
Like the
My
theatres.
predecessor, Lou Haig, did that. I used to work at Transport for London. I was the Deputy Mayor for Transport in London. During that time, I had a lot of robust debate with trade union colleagues, sometimes trying to find a way to resolve strikes that were happening on the network.
Very interesting.
I have some mature relationships with the leadership of the trade unions, and I want to bring that experience to bear in the role that I'm doing now.
Okay, if nationalisation is the answer to this, is it also the answer maybe for the water industry, for energy?
That's a good question,
That
Sally.
wasn't in our manifesto. Our manifesto was clear that we would bring the train operating companies into public ownership at the point at which their contract expired, or if they were performing so badly that actually they were defaulting on the terms.
Day to day,
of their
4th of
contract.
December,
So
Wednesday
we were
morning, guys,
very
24
clear
times
in
down
our
at the bottom.
manifesto that it's right for the railway, and we are cracking on and doing that. That's why we're making this announcement today. But we didn't make that same commitment for the utility companies or for energy. We have obviously said we would set up GB Energy to invest in renewables, because we have to find a way of securing our energy future in this country, becoming more resilient, building the good
That's
jobs
not
of the future.
nationalising it though, is it?
Well, GB Energy will be a publicly owned company, but you're right to say that the actual energy providers wouldn't be nationalised.
You did mention just a moment ago you're actually Deputy Mayor of London
I used to
when
be.
ULEZ was brought in. Would you support similar schemes like that, charging schemes for cities across England? Is that the way forward to combat congestion in our cities?
So I think ULEZ
London's still congested.
particularly with air quality problems, and in London there's a congestion charge, which is a separate issue. My fundamental starting point on this, Sally, is that it is for towns and cities, local authority leaders, to decide what is appropriate for them in their areas to deal with the specific type of problem they have. I'm an MP in Swindon, a town of 260,000 people on the M4. We're not going to be introducing an ultra-low
It's a load of rubbish.
in Swindon.
Doesn't work.
The
Still
air
busy in London
quality
City.
in Swindon wouldn't justify
Still a lot of congestion.
that type of intervention. But when you think about London, a huge global city with 9 million people living here, it has a different type of air quality problem, and so that is why the Mayor, in 3 stages, introduced ULEZ in central London, out to the North and South Circular, and then to Greater London, the Greater London boundary. It's also interesting to remember that it was the previous one of the requirements of the previous Conservative government was for the Mayor to continue with the expansion of ULEZ when we were negotiating emergency funding settlements during COVID. And so this has become a hugely politicised issue, but the fundamental point is local authorities and local leaders should be determining what is right for their areas.
You're right, but you have a new job. You're Transport Secretary. I suppose what I'm asking you is, what do you think?
So I've told you what I think about the fact that we need appropriate interventions to deal with air quality problems and to reduce our carbon emissions. So if one of my big priorities will be around making the bus fleet greener and moving to either
Electric buses.
or hydrogen buses, because I think that could make a really big change in terms of
air quality
in lots of different parts of the country. And there are a whole range of interventions that you can make to tackle problems that are associated with air quality. And I just go back to that fundamental point. Just because I'm the Transport Secretary and you know I've got an office in the Department for Transport, that doesn't mean that I know what the best answers are for all the problems that exist across the country. And that's why I want to work in partnership with the leaders of our local authorities and also, you know, the Metro Mayors. I met with Steve Rotherham, the Metro Mayor in Liverpool yesterday, and we've got some brilliant leaders that really want to bring about change in their local communities. And I think it's right that government respects what they're trying to achieve in their local areas and works with them to enable that and facilitate that.
Heidi Alexander, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
subscribe to Channel Sign German, sonst was schon wieder. Das ist mal bei